Cavities are not caused by sugar. Most all mouthwashes are terrible for oral health. Mouth breathing, bad for oral health, bad for teeth, bad, bad, bad. If your gums bleed when you floss, you need to floss more. Chances are you are doing things that, yes, might be keeping your teeth white and clean and you're not getting cavities, but you are disrupting your oral health in ways that are depleting other aspects of your brain and bodily health. There's some additional things that you can do and a few things to avoid doing that very likely will improve your overall bodily health. I'm sure that today you'll also learn some new health practices and some things that will allow you to expand on your practices for oral health. However, before we get into the to-dos, I think it's very important to discuss the do-nots that every dentist agreed on. Alcohol, I'm not here to tell you to never drink if you're an adult who's non-alcoholic, but the cutoff seems to be 2 alcohol-based drinks a week, beyond which you run into trouble. But just understand that if you're drinking alcohol, that you'll want to pay extra attention to your oral health, especially on the days around that alcohol consumption. The second thing on the not good for us list are stimulants. Any drug that increases norepinephrine, epinephrine, and yes, indeed, coffee, we'll talk about coffee as well, and tea, will make the saliva more acidic and make your oral health potentially less good. Mouth breathing, bad for oral health, bad for teeth, bad, bad, bad. There's just no question about it. Smoking, cigarettes, and yes, also cannabis. And yes, vaping does this too. If you're a smoker or a vapor, that you're going to want to pay extra attention to some of the other protocols discussed and that we will discuss going forward in order to try and support your oral health. Certain things like citrus fruits, which I love. I love oranges. I have an orange tree in my backyard now and I absolutely love it. And no one's telling you not to eat acidic foods. You might consider trying to introduce maybe an hour or 2 hour or longer stretches during the day in which you're not ingesting any food. If you're drinking anything, it's not acidic, or if you are, to try and rinse away that acid as much as possible. Nighttime brushing and flossing is perhaps one of the most important things that we can do for overall oral health care. We'll talk about what to do, what to use for brushing and flossing in a few minutes, but that's absolutely essential. Okay, so I'm not going to demonstrate how to brush your teeth, but one very actionable protocol: use a soft toothbrush. That very vigorous brushing with medium or hard bristles really disrupts the interface between the teeth and the gums in ways that's not healthy for the gums and actually makes tenting of the gums and those pockets, those recesses as they're called, far more likely to form. And every single one of them said, if you are regular with your brushing, that a soft toothbrush, that is one that's moved in a circular motion, fronts and backs of your teeth for all your teeth, and that is gentle, is going to be the best way to break up that biofilm layer each and every time and promote the best tooth and overall oral health. It was also suggested that people brush their gums. This is interesting. For people out there who have tooth sensitivity, one of the major suggestions from people in the dental and periodontal field was to actually brush your gums lightly to increase circulation of blood and other nutrients. Some people say if your gums bleed when you floss, you need to floss more. Most dentists I spoke to said that. But they also emphasize that you need to floss correctly. You can't just pull the floss down onto the gum. You need to glide down the side of the tooth, get a little bit underneath the gum, and use a circular motion, and then lift up from between the two teeth. Your mouth environment is always in a state of what's called either demineralization or remineralization. Remineralization is good. It is the process by which within the enamel there can be the addition of new minerals that form very robust, essentially chains of crystals, the structure of a really well-formed building. Remineralization is the process of putting minerals back into that crystal structure, and it's actually possible to fill back in those cavities that bacteria have started to form. Your goal, all of our goal, is to try and keep our teeth in a state of remineralization by keeping the pH, that is the relative acid-alkaline balance of the mouth, such that the saliva supports remineralization. Let's think about how a cavity actually forms. No specific food, not even sugar, causes cavities. Cavities are not caused by sugar. Cavities are caused by bacteria that feed on sugar, which does not mean that you can never drink some lemon water or coffee or tea. Here's the key point everyone needs to remember is degree to which cavities have the opportunity to form is dependent on the amount of time that you are in a demineralization mode or remineralization mode. Key is to try and reduce the amount of strep mutans and reduce the amount of acid in the mouth. That's the best way to reduce cavities and even reverse cavities that have started to form. Now let's talk about some protocols that involve changing the chemistry of your mouth. And one of the key protocols protocols that I'd like to discuss is the use of an artificial sugar called xylitol. Xylitol is a very low calorie sweetener. Very much like standard sugar, bacteria Streptococcus mutans loves to eat xylitol. But when Streptococcus mutans eats xylitol, it doesn't, meaning it cannot produce the acid that normally would demineralize the teeth and create cavities. So what this means is that if xylitol is present in the oral cavity after a meal, say in the minutes and hours after a meal, then any strep mutans that happens to be there is going to preferentially feed on the xylitol, not other sugars, and it won't be able to release acid. Strep mutans can't release acid to demineralize the teeth and potentially cause cavities. So if you're somebody who wants to explore the use of xylitol gum or xylitol mints after a meal, I wouldn't suggest going from consuming 0 xylitol mints to consuming 50 a day or something like that. You might start off slowly and just consume 1 or 2 after a meal. There is a lot of controversy out there about which toothpastes are better for us, maybe even bad for us, and best for us. If you can find a toothpaste that contains xylitol as a sweetener, that can only be a good thing. The real big question with toothpaste is always, should I use toothpaste that has fluoride or avoid toothpaste that have fluoride? I personally grew up using fluoride toothpaste. I brushed my teeth with those for years. Whether or not that negatively impacted my health or not, I don't know. So if you're somebody who's going to err on the side of caution with fluoride and you are seeking a non-fluoride containing toothpaste, there are such toothpastes out there, and most of those contain hydroxyapatite. They contain the minerals that naturally form the bonds that create that additional enamel that can potentially fill in cavities and by remineralization of the enamel and some of the deeper layers of the tooth. So if one is seeking toothpaste and you want to avoid fluoride, you'd want to find something that ideally had hydroxyapatite and something that had xylitol. Okay, let's talk about mouthwash. Most all mouthwashes, especially those containing alcohol, are terrible for oral health. Now, as we talk about toothpaste and mints and gums, I think it's worth taking a step back and also asking the question, are there any zero or very, very low cost or even cost-saving alternatives to any of this? And the great answer is yes. There are actually a number of things that you can do with basic over-the-counter stuff from the grocery store that all the dentists I spoke to said, yeah, that's a pretty good option. It does seem that creating a high salt solution, okay, so taking some salt, putting it into water, dissolving it, and using that as, of course, not something to swallow, but rather as a dental rinse, so putting it in your mouth and swishing it around and then spitting it out, it's basically zero cost. For instance, based on everything I now know about the structure of teeth, that using something like baking soda to brush the teeth would indeed scrape off the biofilm, perhaps even whiten the teeth a little bit. I talked to several dentists, so it turns out that baking soda and water is actually a pretty good toothpaste if you're not going to go buy a toothpaste.